Welcome, everybody, to Safe Action and the Wise Defender podcast. Super happy to be here. Super happy to have you here. What is the Wise Defender podcast? Well, basically, this is just a fun time where we nerd out about guns. We talk about training, church security, all kinds of fun stuff to help equip you to become a Wise Defender. So with that being said, we got some stuff to talk about today. This is our first podcast episode since the channel rebrand, which let's just talk about the elephant in the room. The channel used to be called Slamfire Productions. Now it's called Safe Action. The channel was a fun thing that I was doing when I was in college, and the cringiness is evidence of that. But it became too much as I was pursuing my career, so I dropped it like a bag of hot rocks, and that's why it's been dormant for about a decade. In that time, I have pursued my career. I've gotten married, managed to find a woman who, despite me only increasing in coolness by 12%, the majority still dorky, still chose me. So that's great. But a lot is different now, and so it got to the point where I just realized I really wanted to restart the channel, resurrect it, but it's not going to be what it was. Back then, it was a lot of just fun gun nerd stuff, just shooting and just having a good time, a few product reviews. We're still going to do some of that. We're going to do shooting videos. We're going to enjoy gun culture. We're going to do product reviews, but the emphasis is going to be a lot different. It's going to be mainly responsible civilians with guns, training with gun ownership in mind. So not just having fun plinking, but really seeking to improve our performance, whether you're a beginner or intermediate shooter, and seeking to be responsible civilians so that we can inevitably be better protectors. So that's the direction that the channel is taking now, with all the time that the channel spent being dormant and the new direction we're going. It just warranted a rebrand. So that's what's up. But again, don't worry, we're still going to discharge firearms on the channel and blow things up and all kinds of good stuff. Things that you can be expecting from the channel going forward, a lot of educational content. I'm super excited for some of the things that we have planned, especially for those who are just getting into firearms and are just kind of looking for some very quick snapshot information on how do I get started? What kind of gear do I bring to the range? What kind of things should I be considering as someone who does want to be safe with a gun? So we're going to focus a lot on that. We're going to talk about training stuff when it comes to intermediate pistol skills, rifle skills, stuff like that as well. And then we're going to do some unique shooting challenge videos where we're just going to get some friends together, and we're going to do some very unique things that you guys probably haven't seen before. So I want to, man, I can tell I want to get into it. I want to start talking about it and just divulge all the juicy details, but I'm restraining myself just because things can change, and I don't want to give away too much too early. But we are going to keep doing the Wise Defender podcast as well. Very excited for this. We have some really cool guests lined up, so really looking forward to fun times, a lot of good interviews, some new segments. Again, I want to go there, but I'm gonna hold back for now. But definitely tune in to check that out. We're going to talk about a whole bunch of topics, everything from new gun ownership to church security to the protector self-defense mindset and valuing training. So that's what's on the horizon. Appreciate you guys tuning in, and please come back for that. All right. Now, I want to get into the main topic for today, and that is, what is the main thing that most shooters are missing to improve their skill? It may not exactly be what you think it is. A lot of people would say, oh, of course, you just need to do more shooting. Shoot more ammo, more time on the range. That's actually not quite it. It's a piece. It is a small piece, but when it comes to improving your skills with a firearm, the key component is intentionality. Most shooters, when they go to the range, even if they want to practice for self-defense, so like, you know what, I have a protector mindset and I want to get better, they'll show up, they'll bring a considerable amount of ammo, and they're like, okay, today we're practicing. But what can end up happening is a lot of rounds are fired, but there's not a lot of awareness of what's happening when those rounds are fired. So when I say intentionality, I think that can kind of be broken up into a few different pieces. And this is not fully comprehensive, but I just want to start having this conversation to give y'all an idea of what are some things you can do to instantly in air quotes, but instantly start seeing progress in your shooting. Now, I mean, that doesn't mean that in a single range trip, you're going to be Olympic worthy. But what that does mean is you'll see a shift in how you interpret what you're seeing on paper, and then using that to inform what you do next. And if you're consistent in doing that, you will definitely see an improvement in your skill. So, first off, we kind of already used the word, but it's consistency. You need to have consistency in form. Now, what this means is if you're holding the gun a certain way, keep holding it that way. Now, some people are going to freak out and they're really like, yeah, but what if you're holding it wrong? It's like, then great. Don't do it that way. But however you're doing it, be consistent in that way. And once you start to see a pattern emerge, that's going to inform how you need to change. So if the consistent pattern you see emerging is that you have wide groups, that tells you something. If the consistent pattern you see emerging is that your shots are all to the left, that's telling you something. If a consistent pattern you're seeing is after you take a shot, your sights are off, they're not aligned, that tells you something. So if we can start to form consistency, or at least build enough self-awareness to understand what you're doing and how that's affecting your rounds on target, that's going to be huge. So make sure that when you load up and you're about to shoot, that you're not just focusing on the gun going off, you're focusing on your hands, you're focusing on the target, you're focusing on your sights. There's a lot to think about. So consistency is huge. And along with consistency comes building self-awareness. You're not going to be able to grow in your consistency if you don't have self-awareness. You need to be aware of how much tension or grip pressure you have in your hand. Do you have too much grip pressure in your firing hand? What does that look like? What does that feel like for you? If you're shooting rifle, how much pressure do you have with the stock in your shoulder? What's happening to your sights during recoil? All these things are integrated in self-awareness. That all contributes to your consistency. If you're not able to shoot the gun consistently, then it's really difficult for you to improve. One way to think about it is if you had a gun in a vise and then you had a string to pull the trigger, and when you pull that string, the gun can do nothing else but just fire the bullet exactly where it's aimed, and you wanted to now shift where that bullet was going, it's easy. Just move the vise. Everything else is going to remain consistent, and you're going to get very consistent results. We're kind of in that same way. I'm not saying you should have a grip like a vise. Some people kind of lean that way and say squeeze the gun as hard as you can when shooting pistol. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is if you are consistent in how you hold the gun, you're going to get consistent results. And if those consistent results are a miss or not what you want to see, honestly, that's okay, because that just gives us information to know how we want to change things. And having information is good. What's not good is when your shots are just everywhere and you don't know why. It's hard to solve something if you don't know why it's broken in the first place. So building consistency is important. Having self-awareness is necessary to do that. The next thing is frequency. Now, yes, you do need to get reps on, right? If you don't get reps on the range, then you're just not going to build a ton of skill very quickly. I'm sorry, it's just how it goes. Most of us, if you take a single piano class, you're not going to be playing at the Sydney Opera House the next weekend, right? It just takes repetition, time, building that familiarity. When we talk about that self-awareness, that really only comes over time of being exposed to the gun during recoil, how your sights react to that. It's just not going to happen overnight. So frequency on the range does matter, but we can do a ton with dry fire. If you don't know what dry fire is, it's basically using an unloaded gun in the comfort of your own home or wherever you are. Well, probably the comfort of your own home. Don't dry fire in the grocery store, please. But dry firing is a way that you can practice the fundamentals of shooting without the distraction of the gun going off. And I mean that intentionally. You're like, well, the gun going off, that's an important part of shooting, isn't it? It's like, yes, it is. And there's time to test that. But if we can isolate fundamentals in dry fire, like knowing what it feels like to pull the trigger on your gun without the disruption of the gun going off, then we can learn a lot about that. We can learn a lot about, am I pulling the trigger in a quality manner, or am I throwing the gun off target when I pull the trigger? That's a lot easier to assess and diagnose during dry fire. You can play with your grip. It's easier to diagnose your grip with live fire, but there is a lot that you can do in dry fire. You can work on your target transitions, and the list goes on. I won't get too deep into that right now, but the point is there's a lot you can do for free without ammo, just by picking a spot on the wall like an outlet or a light switch, and just working on your consistency and building in that muscle memory. Very important note though, do make sure that your gun is unloaded. Triple check it, please. I've heard stories of someone sending a round through their light switch, which I guess good trigger pull on their part, but we don't want to be putting holes in the house. So really do make sure that your gun is unloaded before you dry fire. So one thing to consider though, when it comes to dry fire versus your time at the range, this is how I like to look at it. Your dry fire is like being in the workshop. That's where you're building muscle memory and really forming some of that in an environment that's convenient for you. But then the range time, that's like the lab where you get to test things, see where the wheels fall off, kind of pressure test, is my grip quality, or when I shoot, are my hands kind of coming apart? Is my recoil management inconsistent now that I have recoil to kind of point out some of that? So test things in the lab. You can obviously do a lot of work on the range to practice, obviously do that, but then take whatever you learn on the range and then bring that back into your workshop so that you can keep building. When you dry fire, try new things and go off of the information that you learned when you were doing live fire. The last thing that I want to mention when we talk about being intentional is you do need to push your boundaries. It's very important. Most shooters shoot at the level that they're comfortable with. They stay in their comfort zone because it feels good to be successful and they know they can be successful there. If you're like, man, at 10 yards, I can shoot a pop can real easy. It's like, okay, cool. You're going to probably shoot a lot from 10 yards. Make sure you're pushing yourself, both in distance and speed. Also push yourself, when we're talking about shooting for self-defense, force yourself to shoot from different angles. Just make sure you're being safe when you push your boundaries. Never push your boundaries beyond the degree that you can be safe with a gun. That's too far. That's pushing yourself way too far. But you do want to push your skills to a degree where you're seeing some failure happening, because that's going to help you understand where your gaps are. It's going to help you understand what you can realistically do. And even on the range, you're probably not just flowing with adrenaline like you would be in a self-defense situation. So it's not exactly a direct comparison anyways, but at least it helps you understand, oh wow, I can make a 25-yard shot, or man, my accuracy just totally falls apart past 15 yards. Knowing that kind of information about yourself, or man, I can rapid fire like 2 or 3 times. By the 4th round, it's off the target completely up and to the left. Having that information really does inform you on how you can train better and what kind of things that you need to fix. The last piece of that puzzle that I would say is get trained. Find a firearms instructor that you trust and spend some time with them. You can learn a lot in a 1-day class, 2-day class. There are a lot of classes out there. There are, like 17 to 20 students. You're not going to obviously get as much attention in a larger class size like that. But there are a lot of instructors out there that do private sessions or that do smaller class sizes. You're going to get a lot more help to diagnose what's going on specifically with your shooting in a class like that. But even in the larger size classes, there's a lot that you can learn about yourself, being in a situation where drills are curated specifically for that group of people, whether you're a beginner or intermediate level. So I recommend taking a class, having a firearm instructor who can look at what you're doing and give you instant feedback, and then taking those lessons, and then the cycle just repeats itself. Be consistent in what you've learned, train frequently, push your boundaries, and rinse and repeat. And every once in a while, I do recommend taking another class just to, be checked by a professional. Hey, am I still doing what I ought to do? Have I developed any training scars in the meantime, or bad habits? And just kind of keep going through that cycle. So I hope this is helpful. These are some of the things that encapsulate intentionality in my mind, which, again, if you can be intentional, instead of just going out and shooting a bunch of rounds and wondering why I'm not getting to know my gun any better, or why my skill isn't increasing, even though I fired 500 rounds today, but understanding that every round should have a job. Every round that I fire out of my gun should be teaching me something about what I'm good at, what my gaps are, and how I can bridge that. So if that's not what's happening, then hopefully this has been helpful to kind of point you in the right direction. And if you're like, no, I do try to be pretty intentional when I go to the range, then know that you're on a good track, and just keep going, keep being intentional, maybe do some of these other things that we talked about, and you will see your skill increase. It may take just a little bit of time, but the more intentional you are, the faster you're going to see that development. That's all we got for you today. Thank you all for showing up. Really appreciate it. We got some fun stuff coming. I'm looking forward to it. Hope you're going to join us. And in the meantime, see you on the range.